basis. I've seen some near misses. I've been in a few near misses myself, especially around the little island in front of the service station.
So I was actually involved in a car accident myself. It was in the rain, a lady lost control of her van and actually went into the barricade. So I got pulled back from that and then had to pull one of the ladies out of the car. I was probably in year 9. So that was pretty traumatic and pretty scary to see. That kind of put me off using the bridge, especially by myself. It's very small and it's especially after school and before school, there's lots of kids going to and forth, especially because there's a 7-Eleven there. So it can be pretty packed, and obviously after school traffic makes it really, really hard. They've already implemented different lower limits, but in a sense that doesn't really change anything because not everyone follows the rules. Our school has lots of active transport modes. We use the bike paths and things that surround the Bell Street Bridge, including Merri Creek. There's kids coming to and from every single day, and I think that it's super important that we make that environment more safer and more easily accessible for students of all ages.
That is why we're asking all parties to commit $250,000 to investigate and design safe and accessible active travel options over Coburg's Bell Street Bridge. We need this investigation to be completed urgently within the next 12 months.
We're ready for all levels of government to work together with the community to promote safe, active travel for the current and future students of Coburg High School and the communities of Merri-bek and Darebin cities. To show your support, visit change.org and sign the No More Accidents in the Bell Street Risk Zone petition.
Well, I'm Penny and I am very passionate about inclusion. I'm also a mum of 2 beautiful girls, and my connection to disability is that I have retinitis pigmentosa, which is a vision impairment where I have about 7% central vision. So with my disability, because I have such a small amount of central vision, I'm actually not allowed to drive, which does make it a bit more challenging. It means that, to get around it takes a lot of organisation, especially with little kids, so lots of public transport, lots of walking, and for the most part it's fine. It makes us a super organised family. I'd like people to know that I'm a person too, and that although I have disability and you may not be able to notice when you first meet me, there are some challenges that I do face, but it doesn't mean that I don't want to be involved just like everybody else in the community. My disability doesn't make me who I am. I am me and I have a disability as well. I love playing sport. I live to play sport. Sport's always been a big part of my life, and I was diagnosed at the age of 16, and despite having that diagnosis at 16, it didn't change my love of sport, and I was really lucky in that.
Good evening, councillors, members of the gallery, and to our viewers live streaming tonight's meeting. My name's Councillor Adam Pulford, and I'm the Mayor of Merri-bek City Council and the chairperson for tonight's council meeting for planning and related matters. It's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's meeting. We're meeting on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people. We wish to acknowledge them as the traditional custodians of these lands and waterways and pay our respects to their elders past and present, as well as to all First Nations community members who significantly contribute to the life of our city. This council meeting is being recorded and web streamed live to council's website and Facebook. The recording will also be available as video on demand. Gallery attendees are advised they'll be recorded during the meeting. A reminder that we as councillors will act in accordance with the Councillor Code of Conduct, which will support the principles of good leadership and governance that secures public confidence in the office of councillor. In the event of an emergency or disruption, we may be required to take action to ensure the safety of attendees. For members of the gallery and councillors attending in person, please follow the directions issued by council staff and security officers. Thank you for your understanding and cooperation. I'd like to introduce the other councillors in attendance tonight. We have Councillor Oscar Yildiz.
Good evening.
We have Councillor Helen Davidson.
Good evening.
Councillor Angelica Panopoulos.
Good evening.
Councillor Helen Pavlidis.
Good evening.
Councillor Mark Riley.
Good day.
And Councillor Monica Hart.
Hello, everyone.
Yep. We also have online Councillor James Conlon.
Hello, everyone.
We may have some other councillors joining us soon as well. Councillor Lambros Tapanos has permission to join us online. And just noting that Councillor Anna-Olivia Carly-Hannon is on leave. I'd also like to introduce Philip Priest, who's the Group Manager, City Development, and we have members of the urban planning team and some of our governance team members, and our Director, Joseph, as well. Are there any other apologies for tonight's council meeting that people are aware of? We might move on to disclosures of conflicts of interest. Councillors, are there any conflicts of interest to declare? No. Moving on to item 4, the confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. Councillors, could I please have a motion for the confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting for planning and related matters held on the 27th of March 2024? So Councillor Pavlidis to move, Councillor Panopoulos to second. All those in favour? Yeah, I can declare that carried. Before we move into the report for consideration tonight, I'll outline how this council meeting for planning and related matters will occur. For the item in relation to a planning permit application, first up, the relevant planner will introduce the report and officer's recommendations. Then I'll give objectors or submitters the opportunity to make their submission. And after this time, the applicant will be given the opportunity to speak. If you're making a submission, please clearly state your name for the record. You're requested to present viewpoints clearly and concisely on why you support or oppose the planning application. Please do not repeat what earlier speakers have said and keep the discussion focused on relevant issues. Please note there's a limit of 3 minutes for each objector and the permit applicant, but as chairperson, I reserve the right to increase or reduce the time available to any speaker. On to item 5, which is the presentation of reports. We have only one report this evening, which is 5.1, 1 Champ Street, Coburg, MPS 2021-968. We've already done conflicts, so we'll move on to Jack Paulson, who's the Principal Urban Planner, to present the report.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, councillors. This presentation tonight relates to a proposal for a 12-storey residential development at 1 Champ Street in Coburg. It's noted that the application is currently subject to a VCAT appeal, and council is charged with formalising a position ahead on the application ahead and advising the tribunal as to this position ahead of the pending compulsory conference and merits hearing processes, which are set down for May and August respectively. Highlighted in red on the screen, the subject site is located within the activity centre zone and is affected by the heritage overlay, specifically Schedule 47, which is listed on the Victorian Heritage Register. It's also affected by the environmental audit overlay and the parking overlay. The proposed development area is located at lot S12, which sits within the broader Pentridge site of 1 Champ Street, and that's shown on the screen as the broader site in purple. Immediately east of this development area is the significant heritage asset of the former A Division prison building. It's noted that the permit applicant ran a parallel permit application process with Heritage Victoria, who are responsible for assessing the heritage-related aspects of proposals lodged at sites listed on the Victorian Heritage Register, which is the case at 1 Champ Street. Heritage Victoria have recently issued a heritage permit approving the proposed development, with council responsible for assessing the balance of planning-related considerations through a standard planning permit application process. The site is found within the Coburg Activity Centre and is within an area identified for significant housing growth. The Pentridge Master Plan is an incorporated document within the planning scheme, and it sets out discretionary preferred built form controls for the site, chiefly an 8-storey building height for Building 1, a 9-storey height for Building 2, and setback guidance for lower podium heights fronting the A Division courtyard area. The master plan also sets out a preferred mixed-use character for the site, encouraging commercial uses be provided at ground floor level to assist with visitation to A Division and the northern portion of the Pentridge site. The proposal seeks the construction of 2 fully residential buildings. The image on the left on screen shows Building 1 on the right-hand side of that left-hand image, rising to a height of 11 stories. That's at the southern portion of the development area, so that's shown in the right-hand image is the building on the bottom. And the building on the left-hand side of the left-hand image is building 2, rising to a height of 12 stories, and that's shown at the top of the right-hand side image. We can also see the forecourt and courtyard areas that separate the two buildings from the A division building. It's noted that 245 dwellings are proposed, while the provision of 260 residential car parking spaces complies with planning scheme requirements. Key considerations relate to building height and built form, where it is considered that an excessive scale and inappropriate form, non-compliant with activity centre zone and master plan preferred outcomes is proposed. Amenity impacts, where it is recommended that inappropriate shadow and bulk impacts to the adjoining courtyards and A division heritage asset are proposed. The mixed use land ambition for the site, where it is considered a wholly residential building will provide insufficient activation to the courtyard areas until a redeveloped A division building in the future. And car parking, where a compliant statutory car parking provision has been provided, and an ESD response where, subject to conditions, should council have been of the mind to issue a permit, an appropriate response could have been achieved. However, at a high level, the proposal is considered to offer insufficient community benefit to justify the additional height sought. Given this, on the balance of the relevant policies and controls within the Merri-bek planning scheme, it's recommended that council advises the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal and all parties that the proposed development is not supported due to the exceedance of the preferred building height outlined in the master plan and the subsequent amenity impacts, the absence of commercial land use and lack of ground floor activation to the adjacent publicly accessible courtyards, and inadequate accessible pedestrian links through the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. And welcome, Councillor Lambros-Tapanos. Did you want to just say hello to test your mic?
Welcome, everyone.
Yes.
Is that working?
Yes, perfect. Great. Thank you. Excellent. So we have no objectors who've indicated they wish to speak this evening, and we have no submitters who indicated they wish to speak in support of the application. But we do have the permit applicant or their representative. So Annabelle Poole, AP Planning on behalf of Shea Properties, is speaking on behalf of the applicant, and we have Annabelle joining us online. Welcome, Annabelle. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, great. So you have 3 minutes, so go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, councillors and council officers. My name is Annabelle Paul and I'm a planning consultant from AP Planning on behalf of Shea Properties, who is the applicant for this Buildings 1 and 2 at Pentridge, Coburg. We have reviewed the council officer's report and the recommendation to advise VCAT the council does not support the application. The first and second grounds are on the basis that the building exceeds the preferred maximum heights. We say that this is incorrect, as there are no preferred maximum building heights in the master plan. Council, via their lawyers, HWL Ebsworth, have conceded in the practice day hearing at VCAT, which was held last Friday, that there are no preferred maximum building heights and that the proposal is generally in accordance with the master plan. This in turn exempts the application from notice and third-party appeal rights. VCAT agreed and directed that on that basis, no notice is required. As such, this ground directly contradicts the position that council are advancing at VCAT. It also follows that if there is no preferred building height, there is no need to demonstrate additional public benefits. However, we do say that this proposal does provide for a number of public benefits that we say, including 2 very large public courtyards. The third ground relates to only providing residential and community uses at ground floor levels. We disagree again that this is inconsistent with the master plan. While we agree that the overall vision for the whole of the Pentridge site includes a range of uses, this is not to apply to every building within the precinct. The uses nominated in the land use schedule, which is on page 51 of the master plan, directs what land uses should apply to each building. The buildings 1 and 2, it says, commercial or residential building subject to market conditions. Conversely, other buildings, such as building 9, are to be used predominantly for retail and commercial uses, and others are nominated for mixed use. For Building 12, which is yet to be built, the master plan specifically directs a freestanding mixed-use building with the potential to have a combination of commercial and retail uses at ground level. This is not stated for Buildings 1 and 2. It is simply not viable or desirable in our view to provide retail in every building across the site. In relation to issues of overshadowing, courtyards A and B will almost fully be in sun all throughout the morning. It's only in the late afternoon, around 2 and 3 p.m, where there will be overshadowing. The master plan recognises that these courtyards will experience shadow in the afternoon, and while there are some additional overshadowing components compared to the proposal we've lodged to the master plan, there is also areas that there is less shadow with this proposal. In terms of the access for people with limited ability to access Success Lane from the courtyards, this has been investigated at length with our architects and landscape architects and with council. And given the level difference of almost 3 metres between the courtyards and the road, it would require 40 metres plus of ramping, which we consider to be a very poor urban design outcome. Shea's disability consultant, Equal Access, has also confirmed that given the other available access points for all abilities, this is not required. As Jack Polson said, the Heritage Victoria are the authority to deal with heritage matters, and they have issued a heritage permit for the proposal. Overall, we submit that the proposal is generally in accordance with the master plan, does accord with the activity centre zone, will provide for 245 new homes, which is within the major activity centre of Coburg, and that in a housing crisis are clearly required, and will provide for a high quality architectural and landscape outcome. Accordingly, we encourage council to support the application. Thank you.
Thanks, Annabelle. Are there any questions from councillors for the applicant? No. Well, thanks for joining us, Annabelle. I think you'll probably be booted out of the Zoom, but you can follow along on our Facebook or website.
Great.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll move on to a motion. So, Councillor Riley, you've got your hand up. So what are you seeking to move?
Would like to move the officer recommendation, if I have a seconder.
Yeah, so also just welcome Councillor Bolton. Councillor Bolton, you're happy to second? Yeah, great.
Thanks, Councillor. Thanks, Mayor. Yes, it's fairly apparent this is going under the radar. Look at the turn up tonight. Well, there's just some people passing by, but hi, folks. We have one audience member or public member in the gallery, and I'm sure there may be people online, but I suspect not, because there has been no public notice of this item, and it's now going directly to VCAT. This has taken a long time to come about, and Shea have been part of the delay that's been involved in that. So they're partly responsible for the delay, and then they're saying that the council haven't moved fast enough, when it was actually Heritage Victoria that council thought we had an understanding with Shea that they would be waiting to get that approval so we could then proceed. But I'd like Shea to tell people in wheelchairs that it's actually okay to install seating or steps rather, and no ramps at this point. When you're doing good design, you can actually anticipate it and you can invest your money well. And that's a cop-out as far as I'm concerned, especially for people with disabilities and parents with prams and so on. Look, Heritage Victoria have now approved this finally in the space that's happened between Shea going to VCAT, but it means that council now have to decide how we're going to stand at VCAT. There are preferred heights on this master plan. That's the other complication of the master plan. There are preferred heights. I'm getting a nod from the manager of planning. There are no definite heights. Can't disagree with you, Ms. Paul, about that. But there are preferred heights, 8 and 9, and you're going well over that. And we don't need to have all retail on the ground floor. We're actually wanting a mix of commercial and mixed use. So not providing that isn't good enough. Yes, we do need housing, and that's a very important outcome. And yes, you have got 7.3 NATHERS rating, or NATHERS rating, and a 63% BESS rating, which is pretty good for environmental sustainable design, but it's not sufficient to go this high and this bulky behind bluestone Pentridge walls. When you look at the designs, it's pretty poor, really poor. There are these huge buildings up close to the fence, these brand new buildings, really imposing on Champ Street. It's going to really change the feel of that street with these imposing buildings. Yep, there's going to be more shadowing caused by that. Yeah, it's a westerly, and you expect that shadow because the western direction is going to have more shadow. It's not sort of affecting people to the south so much because there is open space to the south before the other buildings, but it still has an impact, and I don't think it's good enough. So I think the grounds that officers are prepared are actually quite sound, and I look forward to us defending our position on this. Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Councillor Bolton, a seconder. And just get your mic.
Thanks for this. I've followed the Pentridge project for a long time now, and I must admit I find it quite appalling that there's no requirement to publicly advertise the applications. The development is exempt from third-party notice and review, and so that's why no one's here tonight. Most people, local people, don't even know about it. Heritage Victoria is only required to notify in the most primitive way, just an advertisement in the Herald Sun. How many people read the hard copy of the Herald Sun? And a notice stuck somewhere along Champ Street, somewhere along Pentridge Boulevard, maybe one other spot. Very easy for anyone to miss, even if you know what it's all about. So I think, that's my first disappointment. But I certainly do support the officer recommendation. The Shire is going way over the height limits. I know they're preferred height limits rather than mandatory height limits, but it's going way over the height limits, especially in an area where people don't even know, on the other side of the street, don't even know about this proposal. But also the argument I've put for a long time with some of the other buildings in Pentridge is some of these immense height limits really are at the detriment of the heritage, and these are points that are made by the officers in this report that the heights that's proposed in this application will have an impact on A division as a heritage building. And I guess the argument of officers, which I agree with, is there are no fantastic elements of this development that would justify the developer just trying to make big bucks out of going way over the height limit. So I'm pleased to support this view that council does not support this application, and really Pentridge, the whole development should have been handled so much differently from the very beginning.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Do any other councillors wish to speak to this item? We might move on to a vote. So all those in favour? And I can see that that's unanimous, so I might just declare that as carried unanimously. All right, so we'll move on to, so I can declare that that's carried. We'll move back on to hearing about next steps from the planner, Jack.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. Council has resolved to support the officer recommendation to advise the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal that the application is not supported. Officers will write to the tribunal and all parties advising that, had a decision been issued within the prescribed time, a notice of refusal would have been issued. This correspondence will include the grounds of refusal as set out in the recommendation. Council will now prepare for the next steps of the VCAT appeal process, these being the compulsory conference in May and a merits hearing in August. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. given that's the only item on our agenda for this evening, that concludes tonight's meeting. So I can declare the meeting closed at 6 minutes to 7 p.m. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your Anzac Day long weekend if you get one.